be scared, floaties.
Don't be scared, floaties.
Walk the walk when I walk the street. Can't talk the talk if the talk is cheap. Just loosen up, it's a gorgeous thing. I gotta wake 'em up to enjoy the dream. This is hot vibes, living lavish. Ooh, I gotta have it. This is how we make it move like ooh, va va voom, va va voom.
Pretty fun, isn't it? Hey, question for you, and just be honest if you don't mind being honest. How many of you have ever gotten to the end of a diving board, a high dive, and turned around and went back down the ladder in the walk of shame? Anybody? I got a couple. Yeah, you're in the right place because we've all done that. Okay, I've not done that, but you've done that. Anyway, so we know what it's like to be uncomfortable, to be a little fearful, to face all that stuff. With that said, would you agree maybe that we might be living in the greatest time on earth of all times? When you think about all the things that we have and all our modern conveniences, hard things kind of pale in comparison to things like electricity. Next slide, guys, electricity. And you may not even have thought about this morning, but when you woke up, you flipped on the lights and they just went on. You open the fridge and it just kept things cool. We have electricity, which is an amazing thing. Indoor plumbing, I tell my grandson, see, you push the lever and it just goes away. So get on the whatever. So we have indoor plumbing, we have heating and AC. I mean, we literally live in homes and work in buildings that can have the perfect temperature. Often I'll get asked, hey, why is the temperature 67 degrees in this auditorium? And my answer is always the same, because I can't make it 57 degrees, so 67 as close as I can get. And we have home appliances, we have telephones and televisions, and we have transportation. I mean, you can hop on an airplane in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is 45 minutes away, and in a handful of hours be across the country, and we don't even think about that luxury that we have. We have healthcare, things that would have killed us 125 years ago, and we can get relief from, and sometimes even healing from. We have technical things that just are so easy with computers and the internet, and if you're over a certain age, the internet allows you to check the weather every 15 minutes. Thanks, Mom. I hope you're watching today. We have smartphones, which means they have the power of a computer in our pocket. We have digital media and digital music. Now, if you're younger in this place, just know once upon a time, we listened to music on this thing called reel-to-reel when I was a kid, and then there was the vinyl discs that we put on a record player, and then the worst season of music was the cassette tapes, and then we thought we broke through with CDs, and now all the digital music that there is in our pocket, and it's so convenient, and it's so comfortable. To finish out our list, we have streaming services, back up just a second, streaming services, online banking, e-commerce, and then we have a global supply chain. I mean, we click and it shows up to our doorstep the next morning, and every day I think Mr. Amazon comes to my house and I want to know who's ordering all of this stuff. If you have that issue, we'll have a support group for us that are trying to figure out the Amazon guy. Anyway, all this speaks to how much comfort we have in our lives. And here's the thing about comfort, and you know this about you, and I know this about me. Humans gravitate towards being comfortable. When it comes to our desire to be comfortable, there is no end, there's just more. And comfort in our modern age is accelerating at a rate that maybe we never realized it would. It is so interesting that, years ago, human beings walked on the planet and imagined going out in space. And now they go out in space, and human beings, we've talked about this before, are the only animal on this planet that can actually imagine something outside right now. And we imagine things, and then we figure out how to do it. It's remarkable to be able to do that. When I was a kid and you took a road trip, your entertainment was this: listen to what your dad wanted to listen to, play I Spy, or sit and contemplate the world. Now, you can literally watch TV as you're going down the road, and it's amazing, and I'm grateful for it, I'm glad for it. But in the series that we're kicking off today, I want to talk about At what cost do we have all the comfort in our lives? I mean, literally, we sit in climate-controlled buildings and we're getting less exercise and our muscles are less strong. We have lack of movement in our lives. We literally, I mean, I know you may not feel this way when you read social media or watch reels or whatever your deal is, but we are literally in the safest stage in time in history. We do not face the kind of things that they used to face even in the good old days, and yet we are nervous people full of anxiety. I mean, we do not have boredom because there's always something to entertain us, but the cost is we don't know how to connect with people. We don't know what to do in the quiet and how to talk to other people. And again, it's the safest, most entertaining time in history, and there's more fear, there's more anxiety, there's no nervousness, and maybe all this comfort is wearing down our resilience in life. Here's another way to say that increased comfort and decreased challenge result in increased complacency and decreased resilience. See, the absence of challenge, we're noticing, we're paying attention, is keeping us from being all that maybe we're supposed to be. And then when we do this weird thing, we tend to want to insulate our children and our grandchildren, and then our grandchildren, the next generation, are growing up not being able to face hard things. And I wonder if part of the problem has been the church, because this is what sometimes the church can communicate, especially in the whole world of the prosperity gospel, that if you have good faith and you follow Jesus, everything gets really easy. And now he's got you and everything is just smooth sailing. But we forget the thing that Jesus told us, why he actually was on this planet. John records that Jesus said, in this world you will have, and the question is what? If you know the answer, you can say it with me. In this world you will have trouble. This is an upfront promise from Jesus that we don't always talk about in the church. But the early church followers, the early Jesus followers, like they followed Jesus right in to losing their lives, losing their livelihood, sometimes running for their lives, and they were not insulated from hard things. And yet they learned how to press on. It's why Jesus would say over and over and over to them, fear not, fear not. And there was something to fear. It was not safe. It was especially not safe to be a Jesus follower 2,000 years ago. And Jesus just said, you need to know hard things are coming. Now, what's also interesting is Jesus' brother James, which is remarkable that James thought Jesus was his Lord and Savior. And James didn't believe Jesus was his Savior or King until after the resurrection. He saw Jesus die and then saw him alive again, and he went, my brother is my king. James writes about this very thing. What do you do with hard things? With your faith and your direction and your wanting things to be comfort. James wrote the book of James, which was not very original, named it after himself. It says, James, a servant of God and the Lord Jesus Christ, my brother. And then he says, to the 12 tribes scattered amongst the nations, greetings. These 12 tribes that he mentions, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're originators of the Israelite crew, the Jewish nation. And Jacob had 12 sons, which became 12 tribes, which populated a large part of the earth. By the time Jesus had come along, these 12 tribes, they'd grown to thousands and maybe millions of people, and then they became followers of Jesus. And James writes to early Christians. So here you got a letter from James, Jesus' brother. And this is how he opens, right to the deep end, not a bunch of pleasantries. He says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever. Now just pause there. When you think about what makes you joyful or happy or excited, what brings you joy? You might say, like I might say, a good vacation, a good motorcycle ride, my kids or my grandkids, a bonus. That brings us joy, right? And James says, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face, and here's this weird word, trials of many kinds. Can you imagine being in this little church and you get a letter from Jesus' brother, who was the head of the Jerusalem church, and you're like, James wrote to us, guys, everybody circle around, this is gonna be awesome. And then he tells you, when you face hard things, be joyful. Now notice he doesn't say feel joyful. He says consider it joy. Translate it, see it through the filter of hard things can bring you joy. Well, James, you got to explain this to us because I don't know if hard things are very joyful for me. That's the way I feel. And James said, oh, I'm glad you asked. Consider it pure joy because you know that the testing of your faith, it produces perseverance. And you all know this, that a test measures the strength of something. So if you took a test in school, it measured the test of the knowledge of the subject you were being taught. If you were in engineering school, you were tested on how much engineering knowledge you had, and then maybe you became an engineer that built structures, and you build a bridge. You test the strength of that bridge and how much weight it can bear because you don't want bridges to collapse. If you're a CrossFit person, you test out every year to see how well you're doing. And hey, just a heads up, if you're a CrossFit person, we know you're a CrossFit person. You look like it. Now, side note, if someone like me says, hey, I'm a CrossFit person, we know you're not a CrossFit person. Let's just be honest with that. But CrossFit people, you test because you want to see if you've grown, if you're enduring, if you're getting stronger along the way. And James alludes to persistence through our faith and faithful persistence under pressure. What do you test yourself in, especially around your faith? Years ago, I wrestled in college at Eastern Illinois University. It was always tough to show up to practice. I'm a freshman. Everybody's good in the wrestling room back then, and I was a freshman versus the juniors and seniors. And one day, about 4 weeks into the season, I've told some of you this story before, 4 weeks into the season, I walk in, and I see this on the wall, a clock with a red flag or red towel over it. And I had no idea what was going on. And I thought at this point, I'm in pretty good shape. I've been working hard, doing this stuff. And the coach comes out and he says, boys, it's Red Flag Friday. And you heard the seniors and juniors and upperclassmen just groan. And when the coach explained the rules, I thought, this is not going to be bad at all because we've been working really hard. He said, for the next hour, we're going to wrestle and work out, and no one stops. If anyone stands still or is still for a minute, the hour starts over again. And we had been, working out 2-3 hours at a time. And I'm thinking, we get out of here an hour on a Friday. We get to go have fun and do whatever we do. We won't talk about that in college on a Friday. And so this is great. And so the coach, the clock's covered so you can't see the time. And he clicks the stopwatch. He says, go and work hard. So, you got to wrestle. There's stations. You do all the, push-ups and sit-ups and wrestling and all the stuff. And it's going fine. We're working real hard, and you can't see the clock, but it gets to about what I'm guessing is 55 minutes, 56 minutes, 57 minutes. And there's a sense we're almost to the end of this. Keep working. And then somebody just stands still for a split second. Coach blows the whistle. Boys, somebody stop moving. Start it over again. So we started over again. Working hard, getting after it. About what I'm guessing, 45 minutes. Somebody stands still. Coach blows the whistle. Boys, you didn't quit moving, or you didn't quit, you quit moving, start it over again. Then it's 30 minutes, whistle blows. Then it's 20 minutes. Then it's 5 minutes. Now 5.5 hours have passed, and we are exhausted. And this is no joke. The trash cans were filling up of young men being sick, true. I'm not sure if you can even pull this off in this day and age. 5 or 6 or 7 guys walked out, quit on the spot. And finally, the coach, after 5.5 hours of continuous exercise, working out wrestling, which is a super hard thing to do, he blows his whistle and he says, come on in here, boys. He said, I want you to know something. For those of you that endured, that are still here, that didn't quit, I know you're hurting. If you can survive Red Flag Friday, you can survive anything. And I remember barely being able to get up and walk out of the wrestling room that day, but I just had this sense, I've done something I didn't know I could do. I'm stronger than I thought I could be. I've accomplished something that I will hang on for a long time, because doing hard things changes you and I from the inside out. And that's true with life and faith. It's true with relationships. It's true with work. And it's true with our connection to Jesus when things get hard. You see, what James is trying to say to us is trials test our confidence in God. And Jesus' brother James, he said, you're going to face it. I want you to consider it pure joy of what God can do in the middle of it. Now pause for just a second. Some of you are here and you're in the middle of some really hard things right now. This in no way means it's easy or you'd want it to happen to you or somehow we're just going to pray some magic prayer and everything will be fine. That's not the way our faith works. But James is saying in the middle of this really hard thing, God might be doing something really, really important. It might be producing strong, enduring faith. I feel like there's some caveats to this. This does not mean James is saying you have to have perfect faith in hard times. Because for us to have perfect faith in hard times, if that was a requirement, none of us have perfect faith. None of us go through life without getting discouraged or asking why, or even getting angry with God or ourselves. And maybe that's where you are today. This is not perfect faith. This is an invitation to persevering faith. And here's the beautiful thing about that. Persevering faith honors God. God, I'm going through this. I'm holding on to you. I'm going through this. I'm not giving up. It is so hard, but God, help me endure and help me to look to you. And as I'm enduring, God, I want to do the next right thing. And you've experienced this because I have. When things are hard, sometimes I don't want to do the next right thing. I'm going to do the next right thing because I'm not going to make my life worse by making bad decisions in the middle of it. So God, my persevering faith is going to honor you. It's going to be good for me and the people around me. Back to James, he says, let perseverance finish its work. If you quit, if you run away, you're going to miss out on God completing something in you. If you don't face that trial and you opt out and you go for comfort, you will miss God's greatest work in your life. It's like James said, you need the tension in your life to work you through this whole thing. Let perseverance finish its work so that, and here's the reason why, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And the word mature and complete are the same words in the original Greek language that James is writing this. They're literally the Greek word, the same word, mature and complete, is this word called teleos. It speaks to purpose, that there's a purpose that you're going through it, and if you teleos and become mature and it finishes, you will be brought to the end of it. It's a journey, it's hard, but at the end, on the other side of it, you will look back and you realize that you connected with God and possibly people and people of God. And James said, in that, you will find fulfillment. Press through your trials with God's help, with God's strength. Hold on to him and keep your eyes fixed on him, and your trials will have a purpose in the end because God is completing something in you. He's working something out in you that you need to find maturity. And the nature of human beings, especially in this day and age, and I am one of them, is to opt for ease, not maturity. Is to opt for not the finished work, but the easy work. Embrace the hard, James would say, with faith to hang on in Jesus. Because there's an end coming. That God's gonna do far more work in you and through you and with you than you ever thought you could do on your own. But you gotta stay in the middle of it. And you can have bad days and you can cry and you can be upset, that's okay. But stay with Jesus till the end. And again, what we want to do as human beings, and I think it's stronger now than ever before, is we want comfort. We want ease. And my nature wants to create my own kind of comfort. Now, here's what's interesting when it comes to all parts of life. I think this is true in all parts of life. This is a side note, but this is an encouragement to you if you're part of our church and you come often. Do you know where ease is most desired in these kind of places? I want to come and I want it to be easy. I want the speaker to be good. I want the music to be good. I want a place for my kids. And I want to walk out, and I want it to be easy. Once in a while, I want to be pushed, but I want it to be easy. I'm just telling you, if you want your experience in this church, or really any church, to be filling and purposeful and have meaning, you can't choose the easy route. I hear this all the time. Then I stretched, and I got involved with a small group. You heard it in Trista's baptism story. And then I got connected to some people, and my marriage has gotten better and it's changed, but it wasn't easy. I sat with some young people, and I listened and I talked, and I had to put it on my schedule and say, I'm gonna show up and commit. It was not easy, but this place became something different, and God worked in me and through me for other people, but it was for me first and foremost. And I hear this about our church all the time. When I face tension, my faith grew inside this place and outside this place. And tension's really important. You know this. For anything to grow well, tension matters. You want to grow muscle, you get in the weight room and put more tension against your muscles than you ever have, and your muscles grow. I'm trying to get my grass to grow. Anybody else working on that right now? Trying to get my grass to grow because of drought last year. And so I was listening to something on the internet on Facebook, because I am old. Gosh, I've said it a lot today. And it said that when things are good and there's lots of rain, cut your grass really short because it makes your grass stretch. Now, just side note, if you're a grass nerd or a yard nerd and I'm not getting this right, please don't send me an email. I don't care about your grass knowledge. And if you're married to one of those, just tell them I don't need to hear about it after the service, okay? Just anyway. So if you cut it short, your grass stretches into the soil and up to the sun. And then when it's dry in the middle of the summer, you let it grow longer because it can survive better. And I thought that's so interesting. Like, all parts of our world grow in better directions when there's tension around us. And when we have tension, we become people that are fulfilled because God takes something to the very end. And James is saying, if you want to grow, don't preserve your life. What Jesus said, give it away. A little bit of struggle is a really good thing. Now, one more pro tip around this. When it comes to struggle, and you've seen this, and I'm sure you're not this person, but you run into people like, they're like, oh, I'm going through the struggle. It's so hard. I'm going through the struggle. And you're like, what are you struggling with? And they tell you what it is, and you're like, that ain't a struggle, man. That's a first world problem, right? The other side, though, is people go through such hard things, they quit, they escape, they medicate, they just give up. And James says, don't give up on what God is doing in you in this moment right now. There's an interesting thing around brain science that they've discovered, and I'm not going to get this part right at all because I'm not that smart, but I thought it was really interesting. There's this thing that's found in our brains. It's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right. There's a neuroscience doctor, Andrew Huberman, which I'm sure I didn't get that right either, that he's talked a lot about this. And this cortex in our brain is something that when we go through hard things, like being honest when it's hard to be honest, hard conversations, hiking up mountains that are past our ability to hike, but we do it anyway, confessing something that's uncomfortable. We know we're going to pay a price, but confessing is good for your soul. Confronting, setting up boundaries. I mean, the list goes on. When we do hard things, this cortex in our brain actually grows, gets stronger and bigger, and it's like a muscle. The more we use it, the better off we are. In fact, what they've found is in longevity studies, people that have this cortex the strongest and have used it the most with doing hard things, like simply a cold plunge. You might be a psychotic if you do a cold plunge, but it's good for you at the same time. It's grown, and they live longer, and they are able to handle stress better, and they're not so fearful, and they don't freak out. Now, I don't think James, when he wrote this, understood brain science. But I'm convinced he knew the one that created the brain and created the body and created of all humanity, and it was Jesus. James is just simply saying the tension point in our lives is often the focal point of God's activity in our lives. And when God moves through hard things, it does a great work in us. If you're in a great season of life, enjoy it, be thankful for it. But you know this, you're probably not growing at your highest, fastest rate in your faith when things are easy. It's when things are hard. We hear it all the time, that God grew me and did something in the middle of it. Consider it joy when you face trials of all kinds of things of this world. And this tension you feel, the tension that I feel, is actually working on you. Now, when you read through the history of humanity and faith, you may know this. If this is new information, when God approached Abraham, and you're gonna like create a family that's gonna change the world and bless the world, Abraham, I need you to go and leave what you know and leave what's comfortable and leave some family members that you wanna stay with. It's gonna get real hard, but Abraham, I need you to go, and if you go, I'll use you. Joseph, when you go and rescue your brothers from the famine, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to forgive, and it's going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done, but I'll use you. Moses, you're going to lead the people out of Egypt, the Israelites out of Egypt. But I can't speak well, and I'm fearful, and all the things, all that false humility. Well, I really can't do it. It's just false humility. It's cowardness. Moses, I need you to go, and Moses went. And here we are talking about Moses 3,000 years later. Your faith story is the same. Your baptism, when you do your baptism story, if you ever do that, it'll include the hardest moments of your life that God did his greatest works. And they're not all like life and death situations. Sometimes it's just hard things. When we had our kids, we wanted our kids to do hard things. And so when we started this church 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago, I'd wake my kids up early at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go to Camp Clay, and we'd set up with the other people that were setting up. And my kids are like, we don't want to go. And there's this one particular thing we had to set up every Sunday. It was a screen that projected on. And it had a steel frame with snaps around it, and you had to stretch this fabric, and it hurt your fingers, and it was always cold, and my kids, they'd complain about it. But we do it every Sunday because I wanted them to do hard things and be part of hard things. And one day, we didn't have to ask them. They just were up and ready to go. And when our family talks about the best days, they talk about that stupid screen and how rewarding it was when people came in, they got to be a part of it. It was hard. When our kids were young, we kind of set a boundary for our family. I love sports. They're good at sports when they were young. We don't do sports on Sunday morning. We don't. And I'm not judging you if you do. We don't. Because I wanted them to know that this place was the priority of our family following Jesus together. And people would say, aren't you afraid your kids are missing out? They're behind. And they weren't at all. They were fine. But we had to choose where our priority was, and it was hard for them. But I am so glad we made that priority. And if I'd have insulated our kids from anything hard, or coaches yelling at them, or people being hard on them, and like we tend to do, they would have missed out on some of the best days of their lives. My son, our son that is an engineer, and I didn't get his permission to tell this story, so I hope he's not watching today. He graduated with an engineering degree in aerospace right when COVID hit. And here's this kid with all this education. He's smart. He's an engineer. He can't get a job in the engineering world because everything had shut down. And for a year and a half, 2 years, our hearts broke for him because he was broken. It was his dream to do that. But I'm telling you, him walking through that hard developed a faith in him I didn't know he had or could have along the way when he tells his story. And he's got a great job. He helps build satellites to go up in space and spy on you. I'm just telling you, I know everything that you're doing because my son's, that's a lie. I know some of you just got set off. More of that, okay. But now he's walking in a different place because of those hard things. See, it's what God is doing in your life. It's what God is doing in my life in the middle of those hard things, the diagnosis. And I hope you didn't get a diagnosis this week, but if you got one and it was bad, pray that you get healed, but also say, God, would you do a great work through this? Maybe you have adult kids that have kind of gone wayward, off the tracks. And you did the right things and they still kind of went off the tracks. God is doing something in them and something in you that don't give up on, don't quit. You got a job loss, a betrayal. You got a spouse that there's some infidelity. And I know that's so hard and it's so painful, and I don't want to belittle that, but God can do some of his greatest work in these very difficult times. But if we abandon our faith, if we give up on the pressing on in Jesus, we might lose some of the best things of our lives. Remember what Jesus said? In this world, you will have trouble. It's inevitable. The choice is, would you choose to follow the hard but good things and not follow the hard and more destructive things? There was a general manager of an NFL team that spoke at a college commencement, and he talked about this really interesting thing. He said this to a bunch of graduates. He said, you got to choose your hard because marriage is hard, divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Which one will you choose? Being healthy is hard. Neglecting your health is hard. You choose your hard. Being financially disciplined is really hard. Being in debt is hard, and it's devastating at some points. Choose your hard. Communicating is hard, especially maybe if you're a, inward person. Not communicating is hard. You got to choose your hard. Life will never be easy, he said. It'll always be hard, but we can choose our hard. Choose wisely which is the better version of hard in your life. If I could add just a few more just for this morning to get this series going. Facing reality is hard. Choosing to live in denial is very hard. Choose your hard. Dealing with your past is hard. Your past dealing with you is hard. Choose your hard. Maintaining healthy boundaries is hard. Just real quick, you know what a healthy boundary is? I'm not texting her back because that's not a good thing for me to do. I'm not meeting up with him because that's a boundary I shouldn't break. I'm not going to overspend that. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to watch that. Choosing healthy boundaries is hard. Not having boundaries is hard. Choose your hard. Living in truth is hard. Living a lie is hard. You got to choose your hard. Which one are you going for? Forgiveness is hard. Woo. Bitterness, super hard. You got to choose your hard. Rebuilding trust in a relationship is hard. Without trust, it's super hard. Choose your hard. Grieving is hard. It really is, because you got to look grieving in the eye and the loss. It's hard. Avoiding grief will be hard for the rest of your life. Choosing joy is hard. Spiraling in despair is hard. Choose your hard. And some of you might say, yeah, but I'm not tempered to be joyful. I'm a downer. It's just who I am. I just love to be negative. Yeah, despair is the worst thing you can live in. Maybe one of the worst things you can live in. And you got to choose which one you're going to live in, joy or despair. How you see your circumstances will reflect how you think and your heart and your relationship to all things around you. Years ago, and I mean like 30 years ago, I went through something. I'm not going to tell you the details because they're just too messy. I went through something that I was in despair over. It was going to affect my family, my relationship to my kids and my wife, our finances, and I felt despair around it. And I sat down with my father, and I told him the whole thing. This is what's going on, Dad. Here's why I'm worried, I'm upset, I'm nervous. I feel like I'm despairing. And he's a great dad who I deeply respected. He's going to be with Jesus now. And he listened, and he gave me the nod, yeah, he's real compassionate. And then when I was done, after hearing all my despair, this is what my dad said to me. God may do his greatest work in you through this situation. Harry Brown, my father. I would be remiss if I didn't say I was so mad at my dad that day, I wanted to punch him right in the face. I really did. And you know how it is. I didn't want to be told these words. I wanted to hear, oh, I'm so sorry, da-da-da, it's going to be good, it's going to be fine. No, his words were, God may do his greatest work through this whole thing, Matt. And I had to go back 3 months later and ask him to forgive me because I was so upset because 2.5 months later, through this challenging, painful journey, I started to hold on to Jesus every day. And eventually these doors opened, and it didn't get easy and didn't all go away. It did not. It's not that kind of story. There wasn't a magic wand story. But a path started to get created through it that at the end of it, it had changed something in me, and God did some of his greatest work in me through this. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate that. Because sometimes I forget. If you're here and you're going through that hard thing, and I know there is so much. You may feel like in this moment, this is a picture of your life. You're on an anvil, getting hit by a hammer under immense pressure and heat. And you may think this is not kind, it's not grace, it's not hopeful. And I understand that you have every right to hurt. You even have a right to tell God you're mad with him. He can handle that. It's also possible, probable, that God's not beating you up, he's forming you. He didn't create these circumstances. Either you did, maybe somebody else did, maybe just life did. You had nothing to do with it. But God is forming you into something that you would never become without this circumstance. And there might be a day, one day you look back and say, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to go through it again, but I'm grateful. In fact, you know people, if you hang around this church very long, that have been through terribly hard things. And, I always think, I respect them so much for that. I don't want to go through what they're going through, but I respect they can go through it and see themselves as being formed along the way. Do you remember the promise of Jesus? In this world, you will have trouble. It's a promise. The promise that goes with it is, take heart. I have overcome the world. There is troubling things in this world, and it feels like they might last a lifetime. Heads up, in perspective of eternity, 80 years, it's a blip. And a bazillion years after that, it'll be like the most joyous, perfect thing. But in this moment, you may have trouble. Take heart, I've overcome this world. I am with you. I love you. I'm not abandoning you. And I'll never leave you. And I might be doing something great in your life. I want to encourage you, invite you into this perspective. Consider trials pure joy. Now, to finish this out this morning, I realize how many hard things are going on in some of your lives. If you showed up today and things are great, I'm so glad for you today. But you know this, we're either going into something hard, in the middle of something hard, or coming out of something hard. So this is really applicable for all of us. But if you're here today, and you're in the hard season of something, and you're scared or you're nervous, I'm gonna invite you in just a second to have like 4 seconds of insane courage. If you want, you don't have to do this. Trust me, you don't have to. But I'm gonna invite you to stand for 4 seconds so we know that you're going through something hard and we see that for you. And then after those 4 seconds, I'm gonna have everybody else stand and we're gonna pray for everybody, but specifically the people that stood up. Because we want you to know Jesus is with you and we're with you and we're praying for you. Now here's the thing, if you don't stand up and you look around and you see somebody, I want you to pray for them specifically, just in your own mind. If you know the person, feel free to give them a little pat on the back and say, I'm praying for you. Don't ask a bunch of creepy, weird questions, okay? Nobody needs a sermon on top of this one today. But just let them know I love you and we're with you. Be cool about it. And we're just gonna stand together in the presence of Jesus and hard things, and we're gonna ask for joy. But to do this, it's gonna take 4 seconds of insane courage for some of you. Ready? If you're going through a hard thing right now, would you just stand up and let us know, yeah, we need to pray for you? Dude, I appreciate that. Appreciate that, guys. Appreciate you all down here in the back. I can see you guys. Everybody else stand up. Everybody else stand up quick. Come on, stand up. And we just want you to know whether you stood for a hard thing or you are going through hard things, if you didn't stand, we're praying for you and Jesus is here and he loves you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, for the people that are in the middle of it right now, I ask for wisdom. Wisdom to know the next right thing to do for them, for you, Jesus, and the people that love them. I pray they'd have wisdom to see you in the midst of it. I pray, Jesus, that you would give them your strength to endure. I pray they would have the perspective that James talks about to see things that could cause joy and completeness in their life and fulfillment and help them to endure. Lord, I don't pray for perfect faith. I pray for enduring faith to walk through this. They would know they are not alone and they are loved and they are so welcome to be part of this body of believers that's trying to figure it out along the way, and give them the strength to get through today. And when they wake up tomorrow, Jesus, I pray they wouldn't try and figure out next month, but figure out just tomorrow that your strength and presence is enough for tomorrow. And lastly, that they would know they are deeply loved by you. And thanks for the cross that reconciles us to you. It's in Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Love you all. Keep enduring, persevering faith. See you next Sunday.